Welcome to Scorpio Soul Time. I'm Ronique, and this is my esoteric journey where I'm consistently learning progress over perfection. Thank you for joining me during all of these lunation cycles. Every 2 weeks, you come and join me for a new moon or a full moon cycle where we will talk about the astrology and we will pull a reading and cards for the tarot to see what the energies are that we are working with. So we are entering a new moon in Pisces at 4 degrees 28 minutes of Pisces on February 23rd at 10:31 Eastern Standard Time. And it's interesting because a new moon also means that we are getting ready to be, the sun and the moon are in the same place in the sky, which means happy birthday Pisces, as the sun is also sitting in Pisces. And it's always interesting to me because the energies always shift when we have a new moon, because you now have the most powerful planet in our solar system, the sun, is sitting next to the moon. And so the moon in Pisces is all about our emotional energy. It's all about our way that we see ourselves. It's a water sign, so it definitely is a sign that not only brings emotional energy, but it also has a very it's this quality of being able to understand ourselves more. It is the last zodiac sign of the zodiac, because the following next cycle will be Aries, where we will start the entire process over again. We will start the whole zodiac system again. So Pisces also brings endings in terms of what type of insecurities there might be, parts of ourselves that we need to let go at this time. Pisces is very spiritual and very intuitive, and so since it is a water sign, there tends to be this push-pull between like us feeling insecure, but then also feeling like we have almost this mental energy of like not knowing where we want to go next. But then there also might be this letting go feeling. There may be this like, this has come to an end in our lives, whether it be relationships in your life, whether it be things in your own personal emotions, your own ways of looking at the world. You may have even come into situations or cycles in this last few months of the new year where you're like, you know what? I'm done with this. It's time, this is no longer serving me in this part of my life. And so I think that could be hard for a lot of us, because some of us are not emotional beings by nature, especially if you have a lot of earth energy and air energy in your sign or in your birth chart. You might not feel always emotionally connected. And so Pisces is definitely one of those signs that you need to get more comfortable with yourself and get more comfortable with the notion that this energy between now and mid-March is definitely going to be this energy of how can you get right with your feelings? How can you let go comfortably? How can you look at relationships that no longer are serving you in a different way? Because Pisces also wants you to do a spiritual search of yourself. Take into account what it is that is going to help you connect better with others, connect better with yourself. And that's kind of like the lower vibrational of Pisces, is that insecurity, but the higher vibrational energy of Pisces is that imaginative nature. Pisces tends to be very good at, if you are in a creative career, like artistic or music, dance. It helps you become more at one with those parts of yourself that like more that Neptunian energy, where you are more fantasy and things that if you're in a career that involves a lot of creativity, this could be a good time for you to do a presentation, or for you to think of what you want to do with your family creatively. So let's pull some cards today. I think it's also interesting, before we pull the cards, that we are now in Mercury retrograde. So Mercury goes retrograde on February 18th. So by the time you're watching this video, you probably will see that Mercury went retrograde on the 18th, and it will stay retrograde until about March 10th. So this is also an energy of, what is it in your life that you need to reassess, renew, revisit? Remember, Mercury retrograde is more of how Mercury looks towards Earth. It doesn't actually move backwards, but according to Earth, Mercury starts slowing down. And so what happens is communications, any type of information, electronics. Remember, Mercury is the planet that rules a lot of our day-to-day information, communication, working with people, details, facts. So this is not a time to initiate new things. This is not a time to be signing contracts if you don't have to. If you do need to, you just need to read the fine print, ask a lot of questions. It's not a good time to be buying electronics or buying expensive items like a car or anything that has mechanical parts to it, because these things are going to be very foggy right now. So you're going to wind up in, if you do have to buy a car, if you do have to sign a contract, this is just a time that you really need to not only read the fine print, ask a lot of questions, do a lot of research. If you find that this is more information that you're revisiting, like you started it, when it wasn't Mercury retrograde and now you're coming back to it, that's a different story. It's just more things that you are starting from scratch. So during this Mercury retrograde, consider, what things in your life, and especially now that the new moon is in Pisces, we're going to find this part of our lives that we might have themes that come back to us during this time. You might have people come back into your life from an emotional standpoint, from things that could have, things that could have come up maybe back in the Pisces full moon last year. You might see some reoccurring themes. You might see some people that come back into your life, some emotional energy that comes back into your life. So think through anything that could be that emotional, watery Pisces side. But remember, we need to keep everything in perspective, because sometimes when we get into Mercury retrograde, people get a little crazy. So think through that as we go through. Your whole entire life does not need to change just because it's Mercury retrograde. So I tell people, you still need to live your life. So it doesn't mean you can't do things. You just need to be more cognizant of information. Make sure that you're thinking through things 2 and 3 times. If you have to travel, make sure that you call the hotel in advance, check your airplane ticket, make sure you're sitting where you want to sit, check, recheck. Okay, so we're going to clear our energy here. All right, very good. And that helps also for, I've noticed that, when you can clear your energy, it also helps you be able to receive the messages better, and it helps be able to make your mind a little bit clearer. And today I am actually using one of my favorite decks that I almost forgot about. I haven't used it in quite a while, but it is the tales of the mystical cats. And what I love about it is it's all dealing with cats, and I'm a cat person. So today we are going to use the mystical cats. And today card that came out, that flew out, was this number 14, Grace. And this is the number 14 in the major arcana. And what I like about this card is this is like the temperance card in the Rider-Waite deck, where it's this balance between, you can see this cat is walking on this wall, and you can see on this side there's a rainbow, it's sunny, but then on this side it's really like this turbulent, choppy water, and this cat is having to walk this fine balance between the choppy waters and then it being, you know, sunny and peaceful on the other side. And so I think that during this new moon in Pisces, you're going to have times that are like this emotional, turbulent energy because of the whole Pisces being, like I said, it can definitely feed on your insecurities and your emotional energy. So I think it's interesting that all this water is like you're having to figure out, how do I balance? How do I walk this, you know, between my emotional energy? But then remember, there is this brighter side because we're coming to this end of this cycle of the zodiac. So that means endings. That means happiness in terms of you being enlightened is coming up as well. So there's going to be definitely this balance of your emotional energy versus like, what do I have to get rid of in order to feel lighter, brighter, you know, more inspired in the future. So keep that in mind as we read through these cards today. And I'm doing a past, present, and future spread. And the bottom card was the Sky Kitten. And if you can see here, so sky in this deck relates to air energy or swords, which would be in the Rider-Waite deck. And the Sky Kitten, the kitten has to do with the youngest energy. So this would be the Page of Swords. So you can see this kitten is like all happy and jumping for joy, and there's all these ribbons, and it's like that young energy of, you know, playing, and this air of like, what is it, you know, in your mind during this new moon season of Pisces? What is it that you can get excited about? What is it that you want to start? Because remember, just because we are going through this new moon in Pisces, it does not mean that there is, that you have to not think through what new beginnings can you do once we get out of Mercury retrograde. I kind of like Mercury retrogrades because things tend to slow down to a point where we can actually revisit, rethink, and almost like reassess what is and isn't working. You know, everything is not flying past us at lightning speed. You know, since the beginning of this year, we have had all the planets direct. So this has been the first retrograde of the new year. So I think that this Sky Kitten is reminding us, still have fun. You know what I mean? Don't feel like everything still has to be so heavy and so serious. You know, with all those planets in Capricorn at the beginning of this year, it really has been like this very stern, strong, serious energy. And I think this 14 Grace, or like I said, the Temperance card, it's really telling us it's time to balance the energy. We no longer need to just be super serious, all about work, all about career, all about our goals. It's now time to have that young, let's see what we can, you know, come up with. What can we do at the end of this now new moon in Pisces going into Aries? Remember, Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. So once we get to mid-March and April, we're now in that young, fiery energy. So I think that this Sky Kitten is almost like this sense of like, okay, what are we going to do next? So I really love that that energy is coming through, because I think that's a very positive energy after we've come through such seriousness, right? So let's look at the past. All right, so the past is this earth kitten. And I think it's interesting that the kitten is coming up again because that's that young energy I was talking about. But earth has to do with resources. So you see this little kitten and this little hedgehog meeting in the garden, and you can see it's almost that sense of like, who are you? Like, what is it that, you're very different than me? How can we be friends? What is it that, you know how cats like sniff things out to try and figure out what things are? And earth has to do with our resources, our time, our the built environment around us. So there's almost like this sense in the past, like, what is it that you maybe started and you didn't finish back in, when we last had this Capricorn energy, because Capricorn is earth. And what is it that you started, but you're not quite sure if you're going on the right path? What is it maybe back in the fall of 2019 that you may have started and you kind of got your feet wet, but you were kind of nervous and you didn't pursue it? What do you need to reassess? What do you need to reevaluate? Because this Mercury in retrograde time is a good time to go back and figure out what is it that, you kind of got interested in, but you didn't, you kind of pulled away. Like how these kitten and hedgehog, like they're probably like, okay, who are you? What is it that you can maybe lend to me, and what can I teach you? So I like that earth kitten energy, or that would be the Page of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite deck. What is it that you can learn, or maybe you can research now to start in the spring? So I think that this also reminds me of spring, where it's like, okay, what is it that is new and adventurous in my resources, maybe at my work, maybe in my career? Maybe it's as much as I want to meet new friends. So I think that this kitten energy, or that page energy, is this sense of like new things beginning, new ideas flourishing. So this is really positive in the past going into this new moon in Pisces. All right, so for the present, sorry about this little sun that's coming through my blind. Hopefully you can see it okay. But this is the Sky King card. So you can see this very stern looking cat, and he is like at the top of his, he's the top of the pack in terms of the king. And since it's sky, this would relate to the King of Swords. And so, the King of Swords in the Rider-Waite deck is very stern. He's the one that makes the decisions. He's the one that is very focused. And since it is sky, we're still dealing with air energy. So there's this sense of, I like how he's like sitting here in the cold, in the snow, but he looks like he is very comfortable. He doesn't look like he's cold. He looks like he is very content. And I like how this little, almost like these chains right here, can you see them? Let me make sure they're in the frame. I like how these chains right here are like hanging down, and they are almost like beckoning in his spiritual energy. He seems like he has that really stern energy of like someone who knows exactly what he needs. If you need to come to him with any questions, he's very discerning, and he can help you through anything. He can cut away all of the BS. That's what I like about the king. And the King of Swords obviously has to do with air. So air has to do with our mind. What is it during this new moon in Pisces do you need to get really crystal clear about in your mind? What kind of stuff do you need to cut out from your life that is no longer serving you? Because I feel like in this present day, what is also happening to many of us is that, especially with that air energy, it's like you need to start reevaluating what is it that you've been putting too much energy towards, and what is it that you haven't been putting enough energy to. Are there things in your life, especially dealing with any kind of mental anguish, mental challenges, there definitely is this sense of like when we came through that Capricornian energy of January, of all those planets in Capricorn, most of us had something in our life that we had to either come to reality about, or we're just now starting to realize, you know what? I never really thought of things in this way before. Like that Capricornian energy was really this goal setting energy of like, you need to get your stuff together. So this Sky King, I feel like in the present is really asking you to figure out what is working for you, but what needs to be cut out now so that when you move into this Sky Kitten and Earth Kitten energy in this next Aries season, what is it that you don't need to carry with you? I think that this Sky King is like, he has this face to me that's kind of like, I'm going to put it really close to the camera so you can see. He has this face like, what are you doing? Like, get your stuff together. Like, take out what isn't needed, stop messing around, and get serious. That's how I really seriously hear him, like, okay, enough with the, you know, trying to be cute and trying to do what you think is right. I need you to get your stuff together. And I think this is the perfect time. Like I said, Mercury retrograde, everyone doesn't like things getting slower, but the reality is we need things to get slower. We need time to reevaluate where we're at. And I think this Sky King is the perfect card in the present because it's giving you that opportunity to slow down, cut out what is not needed, and move forward. Remember, Pisces is this energy of like letting go, endings, this emotional energy of bringing things to a close. And so I think that Sky King is really a good card for this present that's going to help us get better clarity. And then in the future card, in the future position, we have the 18 in the major arcana, which is the moon. And you can see, I'm going to hold it a little closer. Up here you can see the moon in the back, and then you can see this, it's nighttime, and this cat is kind of like lurking through the darkness, and it's trying to figure out, like, it's trying not to be heard. You know how cats can like walk really slow before they're kind of like, they don't want to be seen, they don't want to be heard. But the moon card in the Rider-Waite deck usually shows this moon shining down, but the moon tends to be things that are hidden. The moon tends to also be this time of reevaluating things that you might not have all the information about, that you might need to be patient, or you may need to gather more information before moving forward. Kind of like how this cat is like kind of inching forward, like, I don't have all the information. I'm kind of waiting until I, you know, more light comes onto a subject. That is exactly what this moon card is signifying to me in the future, is that during this retrograde, I promise you, you do not have all the information. That's just the nature of retrogrades in general, is that the energies are slowing down. Information with the retrograde and Mercury, it's definitely like this feeling of, okay, wait a minute, do I know what I need to do to move forward? So there's almost like this sense of like, even though you're like getting excited for the future, even though you need to balance the energies, there's still this sense of like, what is it that I still don't know? So I'm actually going to pull a clarity card for this moon because I want to find out, does that moon mean that we want to kind of slow down and wait? Or does it mean you need to do more research, gather more information? You know, the moon card can also mean like the water signs, because remember, the moon also signifies Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And so since we are going into this Piscean energy with this the sun and the new moon. This could also more mean that this Piscean energy is going to be stronger for us as we move into the future, or maybe somebody who is a Pisces, Scorpio, or Cancer is going to come into our life in the future. So I want to pull a clarity card and see why is this 18 moon card here? Because I think that we need to clarify what is the significance of that card in the future. Ah, look at that. So we actually got 15. Now this is probably one of the most dramatic demon cats, which is devil in the Rider-Waite, the traditional Rider-Waite deck. And if you can see it, you can see, I'm going to get it really close. You can see that this cat, I mean, is like the scariest cat ever, right? And then you can see it's this bird, which is this prey down here. So you can see like, and then you can see like this fire and like all of these like thorns and behind him. So I am glad that I pulled a clarity card, because you can already see where this is going, right? So basically you do not have all the information from here as the moon card. And if you try and do too much during this Mercury retrograde, you're going to get to this point where something has to go. Something has to be cut away. The Devil card is this card that is, you are too much in your own head. You are too focused about the outcome. The Devil card to me is the ego card. You are too in your head about outcomes and how things are going to go, and you're playing out the same scenarios over and over again. Well, if I would have done this, well, I should have done that. Well, maybe they meant this when they said this. So this time during this new moon in Pisces, endings are going to come. This is like inevitable. Like you will have endings, but they need to come in order to get clarity. So this moon card and this demon cat or the devil, these are saying that in the future, in these next 2 weeks of this new moon in Pisces, it's time to almost like retreat into your own self to figure out what is no longer needed. Remember, the Sky King back here wants you to cut out what is no longer needed. There's this sense of cutting out so that you can purge out what isn't needed, so you can get out of your own head. Because the reality is that the universe will not take away anything that is actually needed, meaning people in your life, circumstances in your life, themes in your life. While it may seem really bad right now, like this demon cat, there are things that are not clear right now because of that Mercury retrograde, because of just things slowing down. Pisces is all about clearing away the old, getting ready for a rebirth. Remember, we're coming into spring in March, where we'll have that spring equinox, and we will be coming to this ending of a cycle and renewing of the next cycle. So I think that in this new moon in Pisces season, this Temperance card or Grace in this deck is really asking you to walk this fine line of clearing out and balancing the old, the turbulent, the rough, heavy energy that we just went through in January, and coming to this. There's a fine balance though between what you need to let go, what you need to let in. You know, there's a balance between getting ready for nice young energy, but balancing it with this clarity of cutting out what is no longer needed so that you can get out of your head. But remember, it might not all be cleared out in this 2-week cycle. I can guarantee you it's not, because that's why this demon cat came in, because there's going to be some energy, this heavy energy, I feel like, as you try to go through this unclear time of Mercury retrograde. And it's going to probably take until like a full lunation cycle, meaning like until that next new moon, which will occur. Let me see. So the next new moon would be in Aries. I believe it's at the end of March. So you're going to probably go through at least maybe 3 to 4 weeks of this clearing out, waiting. I mean, and the Mercury retrograde is at least 3 weeks long. So you definitely are going to have to wait about 3 to 4 weeks and just work with the energy, because the reality is that new fun energy is on its way. But before you get to that, you're going to have to clear out the old. You're going to have to walk this tightrope of this, you know, what do I get rid of? What do I keep? What do I reassess? You know, how is reassessing, re-engineering, if you will? I keep hearing that in my head, is re-engineering. You need to almost like back yourself out of the situations you're in and figure out, how can I do this differently? How can I cut out what is no longer needed? Even information that hasn't come to me yet, how can I make sure that I'm not getting stuck in this demon cat, in this devil mentality where it's like you having to assess everything in a negative way? There are ways to reimagine, re-engineer things in a more positive way and not get so stuck in your head that you feel like you are almost paralyzed. And that's what I keep feeling. Like some of us are going to go through this Mercury retrograde and this new moon in Pisces in this mentality like, well, I don't know all the, you know, I don't know the next step, so I can't move on. That's not true. Make your decisions based on the facts that you have, the information that you have, and just take baby steps. Sometimes I think I like this moon card because I almost feel like that's what he's doing. He's trying to take those baby steps. So he's like really quiet, going through the jungle or going through this darkness. But it's kind of like if you try to leap forward too fast, you're going to get into this demon cat in your head mentality. And remember, you don't have all the information. You don't have all the facts. So you trying to jump to conclusions during this Mercury retrograde time, during this time when you're supposed to be purging out things, take it slow, okay? Use these 3 weeks to gather information, gather more facts, do your own research, meet more people. If you're trying to look for a job and you're trying to figure out why nothing is coming up, just keep looking. Just keep networking, keep meeting people, maybe go back to school, figure out what it is that you need more. Maybe you just need to know what that goal is moving forward. Like you first need to go research some more classes, go meet some people that are already in that field, ask some friends on LinkedIn, you know, to connect you with those right people. I feel like this is the time to slow down and gather all that information. Okay, you all, this is going to be kind of a heavy new moon in Pisces, and I don't know if I look forward to it, but I always think that everything is here to serve us. Even though it might not be the easiest energy, we definitely all are going to do fine. And I think that as long as we remember that this fresh new energy is coming in, I think we're all going to be great. In this balance, we just have to balance. Just remember that everything has a yin and a yang. Everything has a lower and higher vibrational energy. We're going to get through it, y'all. I feel it. All right, you guys. I appreciate you joining me here on Scorpio Soul Time. If you like this video, I would appreciate you liking it, sharing it. I would appreciate if you subscribed and invite your friends to subscribe. And I will see you next time on Scorpio Soul Time. Bye.